YouTube, welcome back to our channel. Today we're in Paris and it's only me today because Sinan couldn't make it unfortunately, but I'm going to be taking you to the second biggest church after Notre Dame, which is Église Saint-Sulpice. So on y va.
While it's true that Sinan was not with me during this visit, you will see and hear him in this video as we had climbed up to the balcony of this church together a little while back as part of another event, and we'll be using footage from both of these visits. Today we are going to explore the second largest church of Paris after Notre Dame, l'Église Saint-Sulpice. Or precisely, we'll be taking you to the parts that are normally closed to the public. If you aren't new to our channel, you will know that earlier this year we had visited Saint-Sulpice and went underground into its gigantic crypts that also house the foundations of the first, much older and a smaller church that stood here. We highly recommend that episode to you and linked it in the pinned comment of this video. This time, however, we are going to go in the exactly opposite direction, or precisely, we'll climb up all the way to the top of this magnificent megastructure, all while opening locked doors and visiting its hidden marvels, including the 18th century wooden roof framework, La Charpente. From ground level, the scale is immediately striking. Twin towers, massive Doric and Ionic columns, and a composition that fills the entire square with undeniable classical authority. This church is nothing less than colossal, and as it usually tends to happen with exceptional things, their history is just as colossal. The construction began in 1646, under building plans originally commissioned to Christophe Gamard, before the actual executed design was taken by the architect Daniel Gittard. By the late 17th century, parts of the church, including the north transept and some structural elements, were completed, though large-scale decoration and construction of La Chapelle de la Vierge would only resume in the early 18th century under Abbé Jean-Baptiste Longuet de Gergy. In fact, the Chapel of the Virgin will only be completed by mid-18th century, and would then have to undergo restorations following a fire in 1762. When the abbé became curé in 1714 and more fully around 1719, he relaunched the construction of Saint-Sulpice. The western and main facade we see today was designed by the Italian architect Giovanni Niccolò Servandoni, who won the competition for its elevation in 1732. However, he died in 1766 without having completed the fronton and the two towers. As a result, the grand fronton and the north tower were later constructed under Udo de Maclaurin and between 1777 and 1780 by Jean-François Chalgrin, who also replaced the fronton with a balustrade after the former was hit and damaged by lightning. The south tower was never completed. The lower level of the facade is heavy and horizontal. The upper level opens out in a colonnade connecting the towers. That will be our first climb. As we go up, we move into the hidden upper halls inside the facade, spaces rarely visited today. These corridors and vaulted rooms behind the towers, once intended for storage of materials, tools or archives, reveal the building's layered structure and its true gigantic scale. Their rough masonry, narrow openings and minimal natural light contrast sharply with the polished stone of the exterior facade. They remind us that every monument has a backstage. The mechanics behind the spectacle. Among the decor and liturgical furniture, an old part of the organ blower is preciously conserved here. When Abbé Longuet de Gergy resumed the project, his role became dominant. He organized purchases of adjacent houses, fundraising, and led the ambition to complete this church. Together with Servandoni, they sought not only to complete a facade, but to redefine the architectural presence of the parish within the city.
As we ascend the eternal staircase, we reach the upper colonnade, a broad stone gallery that connects both sides of the facade and offers a panoramic view of Paris. Here, Servandoni and Longuet de Gergy had imagined a library, a hall of study devoted to theology and liberal arts, but the project was never realized.
Servandoni's working method reflected the realities of early modern building practice. architects were not always present on site, and masters of works, site supervisors, and inspectors often made decisions in real time. Construction drawings, dessin de chantier, were working documents modified on site, not fixed blueprints. Thus, Saint-Sulpice was built more through process than through plan, a living workshop always adapting. For almost 2 centuries, Église Saint-Sulpice evolved, from its origins in 1646 to its final phases in the late 18th century, and yet its south tower still remains unfinished.
Today, the colonnade remains a monumental balcony, offering a vantage point on the city and the craftsmanship of the facade. The stones themselves, from the carriers of Saint-Leu and Saint Maxima, show how 18th century builders selected and aligned each block with great care. The views of the square below remind us that until 1800, the building housing the Saint-Sulpice Seminary stood in front of the church, almost completely obscuring its facade. It was thanks to the order of Napoleon I that the structure was demolished and a square with the Fountain of Peace was built. In 1847, under Louis Philippe, the fountain was replaced by the current Fountain of the Four Bishops, designed by the architect Louis Visconti. The seminary was rebuilt next door, just a little to the south of its old location, and today its building is used by the tax authority, while the fountain has been moved nearby, which we will go look for after the visit. So stick around.
Climbing higher, we reach another grand room that is located exactly above the grand balcony we were at. As you look through the opening in the floor, it makes you wonder how on earth people manipulated all their machinery and materials at the time of the construction. The height is not for the faint-hearted. And just behind us is the timber framework of 1742, the Charpente, that supports the roof of the building. Here you can literally smell history. And let us assure you, the scent of centuries-old wood is better than any perfume. It's truly magical. This immense oak structure, built using traditional carpentry without metal nails, is one of the best preserved of its kind in Paris. Each beam was hewn, numbered, fitted with mortise and tenon joints, and secured with wooden pegs. The structure connects the visible order of the facade with the invisible engineering behind it. Below, the stone geometry, above, the wooden framework. Let's just say it's an immense privilege to be able to visit this place. The building feels more like a ship. It is easy to imagine the workers who once climbed here daily, checking joints, adjusting bells, repairing leaks, anonymous craftsmen whose labor sustains the monument's enduring presence. Their craft, largely invisible to the visitor, was essential to transforming the vision for Saint-Sulpice into stone and timber. And as a bonus, we got to look out of one of the circular side openings to appreciate the magnificent views of the central Paris. After descending back down, we found ourselves in the Baptistère chapel near the western entrance. Here, the marble baptismal font sits under a modest dome, surrounded by classical decoration of early 18th century origin. It symbolizes the beginning of spiritual life, and in fact, the chapel under the south tower was intended for funerary purposes, to mark the end of life, but was never completed, like the tower itself. Seen as a whole, L'Église Saint-Sulpice is not simply the work of one architect, but the result of collective effort across generations. And this is without mentioning the underground labyrinth that we explored in our earlier episode. Documents from the period show constant correspondence between curés, architects, craftsmen, and councils, negotiating budgets, materials, and construction methods. This process, sometimes chaotic, produced an architecture both rational and flexible, and perhaps the reason why we have a magnificent church in the capital that appears finished and yet has a tower that is absolutely and totally incomplete.
I've come out to the place now that's in front of the church. The church is behind me. Honestly, it's such a privilege to be in the Charpente, to see this wood that is extremely old. The smell inside it is just absolutely incredible. You get to go inside, but it's only once a month, and it's in French, and it's every 4th Saturday of the month. It's just such an amazing experience. So let's go and find the first fountain that was here. As we can see, the fountain is much smaller. Yes, the original fountain is much smaller. Makes sense that they moved it here. It looks actually quite beautiful in this small promenade. It's absolutely gorgeous. But yeah, it's too small for the Église, it's too small for the church. Hence why they replaced it under Louis Philippe by something much bigger, much more impressive, that makes a statement and fits better the church that's next to it. This will be the end of our episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I enjoyed visiting this place and I hope you enjoyed it too. And yeah, if you like it, let us know in the comments. If you don't like it, also let us know in the comments. And like, share and subscribe if you haven't done it yet. And until the next one, au revoir.